All right, people, I am so excited about today. I know I say that often, but I have to tell you there's a secret extra simmering of excitement because today's guest is Paul Witten, who is one of my dearest friends in the world. And what he has to share with us, I want to jump right in, but what I can tell you is what I notice about Paul is his relentless pursuit of creativity and putting things out into the world. And I am just going to grill him about where that comes from today. So Paul, welcome to the dungeon of grilling you on creativity.
Thank you. So nice to be here. Thank you for having me, Brian.
For sure. So Paul,
you look great, by the way.
Trying right over here, right?
And sound great too, since this is a podcast. You sound great.
Thank you.
Also forgive if my dog barks. I tried to chain her up, but
if the dog barks, I have a dog too, so I'm happy to have our little puppies be having communication. This is it'll be a podcast.
Pod.
Let's never tell that joke again.
That's never.
No. So Paul, I've known you for quite a while, and I'm just going to start off with adoration for you, if that's okay. So,
yes.
Here we go. So since I've known you, you have been someone who relentlessly puts, I hate the word content, and content feels so blanket when you ever hear they put content out, and it can be like, do they put sketches on YouTube? Like you put out what I would say is the same way that a showrunner puts out material. Like you've got a short film that you're doing and you're putting out an incredible series. And then when I first saw one of your first acting pieces, you were in The Goat in a theater piece. So you're working all the time. And to me, as I was thinking about this morning, I was like, does Paul think of himself as someone who is working all the time?
That's a really great question. And I think the honest answer to that is probably no. And yet the things that you've said and the things that I know that I'm working on now or have worked on in the past, there's always something percolating. So I guess I am, but it doesn't feel like that is more my point. It feels like sometimes artistically, even if we may have our finger in different pies and maybe working towards creating something, sometimes we don't feel like we are because we place value on the professional job. You know, I got a check. I was paid by HBO Max to do this show, and that's real. And me doing this other thing that maybe I've created, or maybe that I'm working with other friends that we've co-created, you don't necessarily give the same value. And I think that's a mistake. So I think to your point, thank you very much. That was really sweet. And I try to be, because I love working. I love creating. I love collaborating with people. And so I always try to keep busy, but sometimes I do forget. Yeah. And I think, no, I'm not working because I haven't had the validation of that network acting job or that movie or something like that. That's a mistake. But this is a great reminder. Thank you.
And then even Paul, as you say that, I think about, and you do book those jobs as well. So I don't want to put the sole focus here on like Paul makes content. That's what you actually do, book those jobs, like the film that you just did with Robert De Niro, and you were just on the morning show. But before we go there, you just said something that was so interesting, is like we put the value on the paycheck or the network or somebody other than me made this job happen, so it meant something more. Is there when do you experience like a tipping point of, oh, this thing I made actually does feel like something that's real? Is there a tipping point that you ever experience?
I feel like when someone else says yes to you in your world to a personal project, I feel like that becomes the tipping point, even though clearly, we sometimes forget that. But I think as you put your own work out in the world, stuff you've created, when people say yes to you and say, yeah, I'm going to do it for way below what I'm worth. We're often always doing work for way below our worth, which is okay. But I think when you have people start surrounding you, especially if it's something that you've created, that starts to feel really good. And that, I would say, is kind of, for me anyway, the tipping point of going, okay, I'm on the right track.
Yeah. I love that you're saying, because like what I'm hearing in that is, when I put this thing that I'm thinking about making or going to make, and someone says, yes, I'll work on it. Yes, I'll maybe give you money or whatever it is, that's reassurance that what you're doing is, I hate to use this word because it sounds reductive, but worthy, or that like it means something, that it is worth being out there.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's validation. And I think we all want validation. I think it becomes very very now to act like we don't need that. And I'm not someone who subscribes to that. I do need validation. I do need someone to read something maybe that I've written and support it or say like, oh, this is great. I love this moment. I also equally am not afraid of the criticism and feedback, good, bad, or indifferent. But I love to hear that. You can shower me with that all day long.
Wait, Paul, one of the
I'm worthy.
Yes, I'm worthy. But wait, I love one of the things that is really that you've made clear to me in the past that I thought was such a powerful way of taking care of yourself as an artist is when you are offering someone a script, that you have a very clear relationship with like, I don't want to give you the script unless you're going to read it because it's going to make me feel some kind of way. Can you share that? Because I think a lot of artists need better boundaries around their creative vulnerability. Let's call it that. Like, because I think it can leave you in a dark place.
Well, I'm just insecure enough, to be honest, to feel like if someone doesn't, if someone requests to read something of mine, if they go, oh, please send it to me. I'm like, yes, are you going to do it in the next few days? Or do you want to just text me or email me when you're ready? Because then I'll send it to you. Because sometimes, not always, and it depends on the person, to be honest, but sometimes when I've sent someone a script and weeks, months go by, I assume that they think I'm garbage and that, that it's terrible and they don't know how to tell me. I'm just being really honest. Yeah. And that's obviously not always the case, but people are just busy and have their lives. But I do like to make sure that someone is actually going to read it, because the flip side of that is I don't have to have them read it. I don't. I'm okay. I hate reading scripts. I would rather swallow bleach than read a script most of the time, especially a feature. If it's like 120 pages, oh my God, just shoot me. So I'm okay with someone saying no or not being interested, but I don't need someone to say, please, I want to read it and not be sincere.
Yeah. And I just want to underline kind of what you said here is like, I don't need someone to read it. So if I'm asking them to read it, it's because
they're asking me. Sorry. Yes. Sure. Or they're asking me.
Right. And I just love that the way, if you're going to give your script to someone, you want to be like, great, are you going to read it the next few days? Because if not, I'll give it to you when you are going to read it. Like, there's just like a different, because otherwise I know about myself enough that if you don't say anything about this, I'm going to decide that you thought it was crap and that, maybe you don't even like me. Like the stories we can write because.
Yeah, right. Just go down that rabbit hole. Right. That's really healthy. Yes. Yeah. And by the way, I'm not saying this is the way to be, I am trying to be more the person that can send something off and do that and kind of release my attachment to whatever a result would be or whatever feedback would be. And I actually am getting better at that. Yeah. And I've learned to kind of hit that send button and go,
we're okay.
Whatever that is okay.
Yeah.
So there's some personal growth in this area. Yeah. Which is probably due, but I do prefer if someone wants to do it, like just do it.
Yeah, totally. And I also think there's something one thing that I know that any artist I think struggles with is asking for help. Sometimes can be a real hard ask. And even when you're like, I'd love you to read the script, but only if you want to, can feel like a weird ask. Like I don't have to read this for me. So I just appreciate just that knowingness. Even if you do want to grow a little bit around this, what I wanted to say is I just think it's awesome that right now you know where you're at with like this particular script. I don't want you to have for 4 weeks because it's going to make me do the story or whatever it is. I think that's such a powerful thing. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. And as you know from an experience we kind of shared together with a mutual acquaintance friend, I was very patient. So there is some personal growth. And then eventually I heard back and, it was lovely.
Yeah.
So I am trying to learn those moments where there's more of an immediacy from my point of view, that I need more immediacy in a given circumstance than others, which I think has been healthy for me. But yeah, still, if you're going to ask to read it, then
do it. Read it. Yes. And I just think what you just said is, again, it is that knowingness of yourself. Like, I'm aware that this one, I'm not going to be worrying about this one or that one. So you have a continual process of having to ask for like, will you do my project? Will you give money to my project? Will you be a part of this project? How, like, this is probably not how excited are you? Is that $1,000 excitement or a $5,000 excitement? Can you, that's one of the things that I think so many people are daunted by, and you have been a producer on these projects. So before we get into like the asking, I'd love for you to just share a little bit about, now that we're a few years out from your series, Dropping the Soap,
Mhm.
What did that series teach you, producing it and being in it?
I learned that there are no rules. Even if you think there are rules, there aren't. And you can kind of, when we started Dropping the Soap, it was still very early on in the short format game.
Mhm.
And I was doing it just to get some tape on myself. It was a really slow time in my career. I was middle-aged and work was kind of slow. So I thought, I want to create something for myself, and worked with a couple of friends, and we did it. And I, raising the money actually came very easy for that. I was really,
Everyone's pissed off when they hear you say that. Spill the
I
tea.
know, but they have to
tea.
know, like, this was long enough ago where we were shooting an episode for $1,000 or $1,500. And the way I looked at it, because money was just kind of, I think people liked the content, so they were kind of charmed by it. So it wasn't, massive amounts of money, but for us, it gave us the ability to tell another section of the story, which was great. So I'd get, I'd raise another $1,000 or $1,500, and we finish up an episode and shoot it, and over a weekend, and everyone donated their services. This was years ago, like I said, when we first started this very long journey to where it actually ended up. And I was so grateful for that. And one of the ways I did that is I'm not good at asking for money. And I chose to put a chyron, or a bumper, on the episode at the end that said, "This episode sponsored by Brian Pataka." So what would happen is, if people watched it, they'd go, "Oh, what is that? How do you sponsor an episode?" And it allowed them to be curious and to reach out to me. And then it invariably went to, how much is that? And I would tell them, and I'd say, this is for camera rental and to feed everyone, because we're all just like a bunch of pals hanging out and trying to tell some stories that we think are funny,
Yeah.
So I got very, very lucky with that. But that's how those kind of individual monies per episode were raised.
And when you're talking about, you said, like, there are no rules, and you also said earlier that there's always like an idea percolating. Is the idea that's percolating one that's like, I really think this is funny, or is it also like, I really want to explore that, or does it kind of come to you in different ways in terms of your creative process? Like for Dropping the Soap, which I know your next project is very different from Dropping the Soap.
Mm-hmm.
And so can you share a little bit about how that starts for you, how that percolation becomes a full pot of coffee?
Yeah, with Dropping the Soap, like I said, it was me trying to, I wanted to create some work, and I happened to be taking a nap, which, if you don't take naps, I don't know, I can't know you. I love a good nap. And I was thinking, and I came up with this story idea, and it was Dropping the Soap. And so I pitched it to a friend, and that kind of got the ball rolling. And I think what prompted that was that I got my SAG card doing a soap opera. And I did an under 5 on General Hospital. And I remember being fascinated with the way these people work and how much work it is and how devoted they are, how quickly it moves. It was a fascinating world that was unlike, in my opinion, the, primetime TV and film world. So it's its own microcosm. And I kind of wanted to, pay homage and poke a little fun at it. And so that's how that idea came up. Also, sometimes just talking with other creative people, and it's usually born from some circumstance that I've had or they've had, or some idea, like the short film that I did was, kind of inspired by years of going to see friends in plays and not always being blown away by the productions.
So Paul's being very kind right now. What he's saying is, when your friend says, come see my one person cabaret, it's 90 minutes long, and I sing 35 songs, all by Lerner and Lowe, and I talk about my dead dog. Like, and sometimes it's not even that bad of a description. Sometimes it's like, come see my great play, and you're like, this was not a great play. And this film captures it so incredibly, and it's absurdist and amazing, Paul. I think that film is such a great So that idea, did it come from, I've gone to one too many bad plays? Like,
yes, and my friend Sean Wing, who wrote it with me, Sean Wing and Mara Marini, who we all three co-wrote it. We've all been friends for years. We've all been a theater company for years. We've seen bad, horrible plays together, and we've seen magical, transformative plays together. But that was less interesting to tell that story. So we just started brainstorming over, dinner one night and came up with this idea, and it kind of became tangential in a really fun way, which that I won't ruin in case somebody actually wants to watch this. It's called A Play, and if you go to my social media, I think there's a link there. But it was so much fun to create with them, and so that's what that was born of. I think very often it really just is from personal experience, things that mean something to us, good, bad, or indifferent, that feel like a story you want to tell for whatever reason. I guess it means I'm a little twisted that I wanted to tell that story.
If I can just circle back, because we're recording this episode in the week when the IATSE union has just authorized a strike, and I want to go back to the
with an incredibly a vote of what was it? Is it
99% of people?
It's amazing,
incredible, right? So, but what I think I wanted to go back to Dropping the Soap because it's also an homage to crew people, to people who are on sets. It's just such an honoring of all of those people. And one of the things I was just thinking about is how curious / not surprising is it that you wanted to choose the backstage and front stage scenario of a soap opera where you are getting to know these people and what it is that they do every day. And I just think that it's such a it feels very current. It feels very modern. It feels very of the times. So if you haven't watched Dropping the Soap on Amazon yet, it is a great watch.
Go watch it.
Yeah, it is a great
10 episodes. It's fun.
Yeah, totally fun.
And I love behind the scenes thing. I anything behind the scenes. I really love to see what makes people tick and how things work, and kind of peel back and look behind the artifice, if you will.
Yeah.
And I find people's flaws so interesting. So, and I don't think that's unique to me. I think we all do. And for me, that's what that story also became about, someone's journey of self-discovery, which happened to kind of coincide with something I was going through too. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and as I'm thinking about this, if I was going to look at the Paul Witten oeuvre, it's celebrating.
Oh, I have an oeuvre.
Yes, your oeuvre, right? Is there's something around celebrating hubris or watching hubris and how it plays out. Even in Come See My Play, there's a hubris around Come See My Play. Even in the hubris of your lead character in Dropping the Soap, there's something around that is both play. It's it is so. What I would say is so easy to empathize. It's so easy to go along the journey with the characters that you've written, I think. And so this kind of leads me into what your next project is. And I would love for you to share with the audience just a little bit, whatever you're willing to tell us about this project you have coming up.
Sure. It's called You Are Here. And it's basically about a group of middle-aged friends that are at, a certain point in their life, which is not often a story that we get to see. And these people are mostly single and kind of navigating life as single people in Los Angeles, although it certainly is applicable anywhere. And what it's like as we age and we start discovering who our family is. If we don't have close ties with our blood family, the people that we bring close to us and that we include in our orbit that enrich us and that become our chosen family, and how we depend on those friendships, maybe more than people that have strong relationships with their blood relations, or as well as. And that is something that I'm very familiar with, and I wanted to kind of explore that. And I know so many people that, like myself, that I'm single right now and have been for a few years, and I love it. And I also want partnership, but you start getting older, especially in the gay world, it's there's a real kind of stigma, and I wanted to kind of shine a light on that. I think it's really fascinating.
Yeah. And what I love about what you're saying is because I think anyone here can relate to the chosen family, because as a creative, you're usually an outlaw in your own family. So you got to find someone who says yes to you.
Mm-hmm.
And then also what the specificity of it being in middle age, where a lot of people around you are probably pairing off. And so what does it look like to be one of the singles who's in that that crew, and what does that life look like? So, and you're right, this is a story that's not being told.
And without pity, I don't feel sorry for single people. And I think, as a fellow single person, I love being single. I love living alone. There's a lot I like about it, which can present its own challenges, right? So when I'm in the dating world and I'm not someone who is starved, let's say, to add a partner to my life because I've created this life that I'm not mad about. It takes a lot to kind of let that person in.
Yeah.
And sometimes to maybe my detriment. So I think that's also something that is interesting to explore, how we become so independent and self-sufficient that sometimes maybe what we're lacking is sex, maybe because we've surrounded ourselves with wonderful friends and our chosen family, our blood family, right? And we've set ourselves up for success in our lives at this age, so that maybe the only thing missing is a sexual gratification, which can be a trap.
Sure.
And can limit someone else from fully entering your life because you're maybe not valuing everything that they have to offer because you're fulfilling it yourself.
Well, yeah, you're humming along doing, maybe you're just okay. Maybe you don't, maybe like this might be fun.
Right. And maybe that's fine. And maybe it's not. Maybe it's a little lonely on some days. Maybe it's amazing. Yeah. But I think that's such an interesting thing to explore because like I said, I have so many friends that are single and also people in couples, and that's not always a walk in the park either. It's just human. I just think it's a fascinating story that we don't see a lot.
And I love what you're saying, because I think most of us relate or have seen enough of the story of like the 26-year-old who is out of school and
life is so tough.
And also like being a big slut, or like going out all the time, or like having this boyfriend and then that boyfriend, like just not settling into their life yet, right? In that it's a very different conversation around when you're a different age and you have a life you've established and you're trying to say, do I want someone else in here? Well, maybe on Tuesdays I do, but on Wednesdays, like today was a great day. This was a good day by like that. It can be almost like the weather of how you're experiencing what you want around. And also, I just want everyone to point out, clearly Paul is not a sensitive artist at all. You can see he's just a moneymaker here. I mean, I think the stories you're telling are so unique and awesome that I can imagine that, there's a certain audience or producer or money that you can find that says yes to a story like the one you've just described. It's more nuanced and maybe less yucca yucca than, I don't think Dropping the Soap is yucca yucca, but Dropping the Soap is definitely.
No, but that's much more like it's much more of a straight up comedy, a little absurd. It's a satire basically. Right. So, and it's fabulous. It's wonderful. I'm really proud of it. But with You Are Here, it's really more slice of life.
Right. Yeah.
It should feel just real, and like you're peeking in on these people and their lives and their myriad of, can I swear?
Yeah.
Myriad of fuck ups, like I don't know about you and I don't know about your listeners, but I fuck up constantly and I make the same mistakes over and over again. And I see other people do it too. And it's just so human. And it's like, so I think exploring how people do that, and how they maybe learn and maybe don't learn from those fuck ups or experiences.
So I want to talk a little bit about, I heard a little doggy there. How exciting.
Oh, can you hear her?
Stevie Nicks wants to be on the podcast. I love it. She's trying.
Yeah, someone must be walking by. Yes, I have a dog named Stevie Nicks.
So I want to get into the artistic experience of being a producer and an artist at the same time. So when you're out there, because we talked a little bit about how the money kind of came easy for Dropping the Soap and you're onto this next project. And I think a lot of listeners would relate to this of like, he is a magician who knows tricks I've never heard of before. How does that ever happen in the history of the world? Is there a way that you can break down a little bit of how you approach, it's time to get some money for this? If you were to actually think about how you walk through that door, how does that start for you?
Honestly, telling a story that's personal.
Keep going. This is great. Keep going. Yeah.
And really opening yourself up to tell those truths that you have. We hope they're universal. We hope that they are relatable, but most importantly, it's just kind of exposing yourself and allowing yourself to be vulnerable and tell a story that may not always be pretty, but that's uniquely you. And I do truly believe that when people read something like that or hear a pitch for something like that and connect to it, they want to be a part of that, right? Because it feels connected. It feels like something they can relate to, because it's no different than when you watch a show and there's a moment in a show that happens and you're touched and you cry or you laugh. It's like just a honest reaction. And so that's what I do. I try and express myself and open myself up to be vulnerable, tell a story, show warts. Initially, the name of You Are Here was Warts and All. And I thought, having a title with
It also makes me think of Halloween.
with warts sounds vaguely disgusting. So I rethought that. But I think that I think it's kind of that simple. And people will read something like that, as I said, or connect to something like that and want to be a part of it. Yeah. And that's kind of how it's worked for me personally, because I've been in situations, with Dropping the Soap, we were so lucky that Jane Lynch came and she happened to see what we were doing. And she was like, wow, this is really good. I want to see if I know anyone that would like to help with this. So eventually, and this was over the course of years, eventually we connected with Lisa Kudrow's company, and she was an executive producer at one point. So we had Lisa and we had Jane and Dan Bubatinsky and Don Roos with Is or Isn't Entertainment. And we were shopping it around, and we had CAA in our corner, and we were pitching it and trying to become a branded series kind of in the early time. And it didn't end up happening. And, you think as an artist, you think, oh, hell yeah, I've made it, because I've got fucking Lisa Kudrow, fucking Jane Lynch, CAA. Yes,
it's done.
Not true.
No.
And it didn't, we had great meetings, we met great people, we made great relationships, but that wasn't actually the thing that ended up triggering it and making it happen.
Yeah.
And so I eventually kind of took the reins back and did it on my own, kind of independently initially. And that was what made it happen.
Right.
And again, I think it was just because people connected to it. I think in Dropping the Soap's case, it was because people just thought it was funny.
Yeah.
Mandy Fabian was the writer of that, and she's hilarious. And she and I have a very similar sensibility. So as the showrunner and the writer, we just had a great simpatico. And I think that resonated for people.
Yeah. And so what I'm hearing you say almost is, people got so into the pitch and the idea of it that people were yes-manning it a lot, when actually they didn't maybe have the follow-through that they could actually give when push came.
Yeah, or the industry didn't. I think that the interest was there, certainly with Lisa's company and with Jane. It was definitely there, but at the time that we started this journey, which is going back 8 years, maybe longer, when this first started with this idea, the industry wasn't quite sure. Ileana Douglas had a series called
the IKEA one.
The IKEA one. I can't remember. I'm blanking on it, but that was kind of trailblazing. And it was, it was post that, but people didn't know what to do with short form.
Right.
It was kind of the redheaded bastard stepchild. I don't know if we can say that, but I just said it. So it's it was really hard to get people to understand, how do you monetize this?
Right.
Where is this going? I think it's still a challenge, to be honest with you, but we were able to kind of navigate our way around it and find the way in that worked for everybody that was involved.
Well, and also, if I can just compliment you, Paul, is I think that one of the things around short form is like, does it pay off? And I think we saw the horrible, I put the word horrible, you could change the word to something else, but like Quibi in it released is so different from what you were able to do in Dropping the Soap, which I think Quibi was trying to be like some short form version or whatever, is that the episodes, when I would watch them, didn't have payoff. And when I would watch an episode Dropping the Soap, I was like, I've just watched an episode of a television show. The shortness isn't part of what's registering for me. I feel like I've watched an episode and I can be ready to watch the next one, which is very different than this was short on purpose for some reason, which is not the same as I've constructed art. I've created an art piece that happens to be 10 minutes long.
That is the biggest compliment. And I can't wait to share that with Mandy too. That's such an enormous compliment. Thank you. We really worked to do that. We would have loved to have a half-hour series. We didn't have the funds to do a half-hour series. So we created 10-minute episodes. So we had a 10-episode series, and it does feel like a mini series.
Oh my God. It feels like, I'm watching a show. There's nothing about it that feels anything less than
that's honestly an enormous compliment. So really, truly, thank you so much. And with Quibi, I didn't watch a lot of content on there, but what it felt like And I'm talking out of my ass here because, as I said, the disclaimer is that I didn't watch it, but it felt like it was a lot of opportunity for stars to come in and have some platform of some ancillary content that was, I wish what Quibi had really been and promoted was for people like, I'm sure many of your clients and people that are out there in the world trying to create something and tell stories that are the underdog, that are the person that doesn't have a big company behind them, that doesn't have $1 million to spend on a series. I would have loved for it to be that, and maybe there was an element of that, but it didn't feel like that based on my kind of limited perspective. It felt like it was appealing to a different audience.
And it was, everything was shot beautifully, but it, again, wasn't telling a story, because the story is what this audience wants to hear stories. Hi, Stevie. She got something to say. She got something to say. I love it. I love it.
Someone must be walking by. Sorry.
I have 2 guests on the podcast today. I'm totally into it. So I wanted to ask you another question. So what I heard you saying, I want to go back to the money thing just a little bit, because I know our listeners are going to be really interested in it, is you didn't do any crowdsourcing for any of your projects. Isn't that right? Wasn't it all
Correct, I did
very
not.
much wholeheartedly, vulnerably sharing the story with a human being to get them on board? And I just think that that is such an important thing for people to hear, because I think, the easy answer, not easy, but the easy answer is crowdsourcing. Let me go to one of these websites and do it that way, which is not how I've known you to do any of the projects you've done so far.
I haven't. And I love that that's an opportunity for people and that works for a lot of people. I didn't think I'd be successful at it, because I didn't think that someone, here, give $100 and I'll give you a pencil with the title on. Like I couldn't, that didn't interest me. And again, so I tried to just kind of put out there what I thought was interesting and hope that someone got on board. But it's, people, it's hard to raise money.
Yeah, totally.
It's hard to get money, but I feel like if you surround yourself with people that are like-minded, which is what I've tried to do, people that are like-minded, that are talented, and that, like having Jane Lynch, let's say, involved in Dropping the Soap, that certainly added an element of legitimacy, for lack of better words, that other people coming along could go, oh, this is funny. And this amazing actress, comedian also is on board. So that also gave people some security, right? So people that are about to write a check, you don't know that there's any ROI with this, or return of investment. So you don't know. So when you see something that maybe is content that you like and other people kind of gravitating towards a project that you like, I think it starts to kind of feed into itself, and people start getting involved and willing to jump on board based on those things too. So
yeah, and one of the things that I think everyone needs, maybe not reading between the lines, so I'm going to point to the in between the line space for a second, is that Paul treats his network of people he's worked with really, really well. And one of the gifts, I think, of a creator that is overlooked too easily, I think sometimes, is the opportunity to give someone, how about, you want to do this job with me? You want to work on this project with me? Like, everybody out there is hustling and trying to get work all the time. And one of the opportunities that Paul can give someone is, I'm doing this pilot. Would you like to? It is not going to pay a lot of money, but it's going to be really fun. And you're going to be with people that you like. And that is part of what you do within your network, is you just treat them well by sharing all of this stuff with them. I think, and that's one piece where we all need to run with that idea of, how do we treat our network? How do we offer them opportunity? Because too often I think we think it's about asking a favor, but I don't know, Paul, when you are asking someone to be a part of your project, are you dancing with, is this a favor / this is an awesome gig for them? Or are you mostly thinking of it as a favor?
That's a great question. And it's a little of both. And there are times when I feel like it's a favor. So I usually, I would say more than half the time, I feel like it's a favor. And I'll say to them, look, I'm not going to be able to pay you what you're worth. No one on this show is going to get what they're worth. But I would love for you to get on board, because I think you're really talented. I love your energy on a set. You're fucking funny. You're fun. I'm going to feed you well. We'll have some cackles.
Yeah.
We'll probably work some long hours, but we're going to have fun.
Yeah.
And I think when you just kind of acknowledge to people, like, yeah, the money on this sucks, like, so only, but also and I've said this to people, if you don't connect with this project, don't do it.
Yeah.
If you can't happily do this for the crappy 125 you're going to get, or 200, then don't do it. I get it. I totally get it. And I would never hold that against someone.
Yeah.
Because to me, I only want people that show up that are okay with that and go like, yeah, I mean, it'll be grocery money, whatever. Yeah. It's great. I'm going to enjoy doing this piece, and I enjoy the people that you've got involved. And that's the best thing to do. It sets you up for success.
Yeah.
So if it starts tilting into it's a favor and someone is resentful about money, which I just personally haven't run into because of what I just said, then that would be a different thing. Yeah, there was someone on Dropping the Soap actually that came in and did us a favor and was doing just like a 1 or 2 liner thing, and came in and right before lunch, and we all had lunch. So, he was waiting around for 30 or 40 minutes. And then we started back up again, and we had one thing to do right before we got to his stuff. And he was like, I thought this was going to be quick. When am I going to be out of here? And that was so unlike anything I had heard on our set, which was so not that energy, that I said, you know what, go. It's okay. We've got it. Don't worry. Please get a plate, take yourself some dinner. Like, if you've got to go, go. Yeah. And I sent him home.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. And
because it wasn't important for me to have someone there that didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
And I get it. You have limited time. Take some food. Go. Feed yourself.
One of the things that Paul just said that I think is, because what I'm hearing Paul over and over again, and I'm actually really recognizing this about you right now, is this incredible power you have, and I would call it a strength, not a power, sure, strength, to ask a question and give someone the dignity of their answer. Meaning, I'm not going to manipulate the situation into a space where I don't want to take up too much of your time and ask you, could you do me this favor? But actually saying, it's not going to be a lot of money. We're going to have fun. And if you say no, that's okay. They're just like allowing someone the dignity of their answer, I think just gives someone it's so much easier to ask a question when you kind of out yourself. We both know this isn't a lot of money. It's a project that's going to be fun. And if it's not going to be fun for you, then this won't be a favor to me. It needs to be something that you're going to say you love to do. Right.
Yeah, thank you. That really makes me feel good to hear that. I try to do that. I haven't always done that. That's why I say it makes me feel good to hear that. Yeah. Because I think before I kind of moved through the world differently, and I did, I didn't maybe respond in the same way. And I learned a lot. I learned that didn't fucking feel good. So what felt good was just to go, I just have to be honest and authentic with what this is for me. And you get to do the same, and maybe they don't align. It's like when you're dating.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
It's like, you're awesome and you're not for me.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like,
totally.
So that's something I'm learning and still learning, but thank you. I appreciate that.
And I think it's just something that we all can just witness and also take into our own, everyone who's listening, take into our own journey, is of like, let someone say no. And what that means is you have a big capacity probably for hearing some no's sometimes, or someone is saying no.
We have to, right? Everyone in this business, you're so often hearing no that I think you become somewhat inured to it. And I don't look at the no's necessarily as a bad thing. I try to look at them as a good thing. You have to, or you're screwed, because you're getting so many. But I think they can be really good because they usually teach you something. There's usually a lot to learn from a no. Sometimes it's just introspection. Sometimes it's, looking at why did they say no? Maybe I approached this badly.
Or sometimes it's like you said, oh, this isn't a match. Good. I'm glad they said no, because it would have been shit set with them anyway.
Yeah. And this particular actor was a wonderful actor. And he had his boundary. It was not what he expected. I'm not the one who personally had reached out. So I felt like, oh, he may have been told, hey, could you run over and do this thing? It'll be really quick. So it wasn't to demonize him in any way. That's why I was like, take some food. You're good. Go. And I'm sorry we wasted your time. Yeah. Because he had been there a couple hours, 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah.
So he had his boundary, and I can respect that.
I mean,
I set his car on fire.
Right, I was saying, set his car on fire.
Right.
Also, it's the day of the shoot, so like, get it together. Like, yeah, there's a few things in there that like piss me off a little. But
Right. Just to be clear, I fucked up his car.
Yeah.
Right.
I want to. I'm going to save a question I want to ask at the end, but before I get there, I would love for you to share a little bit. You just did a big feature film that with Robert De Niro and Zach Braff and Tommy Lee Jones and Morgan Freeman. Can you just spill the tea a little bit on that? Because it's also another one where like we're seeing I love that it's also a film where you're like showing the making of the film while it's another backstage.
Yeah. It was so much fun. And one of the ancillary gifts of creating your own content. So I'm going to let's talk about that. The reason that came about was because someone saw Dropping the Soap. So it's the power of just getting out there and doing it. You never know who's going to see it and go like, oh, I like that person. They don't suck that bad. Let's have them be, you know what I mean? Yeah. So that kind of was what made that happen for me, which was such a fantastic experience, top to bottom. I got to go to New Mexico for a month, like you said, and I worked with, Robert De Niro, Bob, and who's lovely, and Morgan Freeman, Tommy Lee Jones, Zach Braff, who I worked who's awesome in this movie and a really good guy. It was directed by George Gallo, who did Midnight Run, and it was supposed to come out a while ago because of the pandemic, kind of like this James Bond movie. It's been like, it was ready to go 2 years ago or something, and now it's coming out. I think it's coming out before the end of the year, but I don't know an exact release date.
And it's called The Comeback Trail.
The Comeback Trail.
Yep.
The Comeback Trail. And I play the production designer. The story is about a producer who is shooting a movie that he puts Tommy Lee Jones in, who's this old drunk cowboy, with the hopes of killing him and collecting insurance money. So, and it's a really kind of fun, silly comedy that's a real throwback to like a 70s. Yeah. And it takes place in the 70s. And I play Danny, who's the production designer of the movie within the movie, called The Oldest Gun in the West, I think. Was that right? I think The Oldest Gun in the West. Okay. And it was just, there was one moment where I'm in Tahajli, New Mexico, and I'm standing on this beautiful cliff overlooking this amazing vista, standing with Zach and Robert De Niro, Tommy Lee Jones behind me, and I'm in this expanse of beauty that's on this, I think it's an Indian reservation, Tahajli. Stunning. And it was surreal. Yeah. It was absolutely surreal. And these great costumes that Melissa Vargas, who's the best costume designer, it was amazing. It was such a great experience. And it was really a pinch me moment. Yeah. The whole thing. But that was a moment I remember really tracking, going, I want to remember this. We tend, I think, so often to, when we're in moments of creativity or moments of success or moments of jobs where someone has finally said yes, and we're thinking outside of it. We're thinking about the next thing or how we're going to get. I mean, I should speak for myself. I can sometimes do that. By sometimes, I mean, I always do that. Yeah. So I didn't let myself do that. There were many moments, that one being just one that really was marked for me, where I did not let myself do that. Yeah. I sat in the moment and I really took it in, every aspect. I can remember what it smelled like. I remember, it was just this amazing moment.
Yeah. And I just love what you're saying, Paul, because I think you're right. I call that the refrigerator moment, where your refrigerator, you just got home from the grocery store, it's completely full with your food, and you're like starting to make the next list already. You're like already making a list before you go, wait, the fridge is full. I'm here. I'm on this beautiful vista here with these incredible performers and what I also see in that is the recognition of, I have created a life where it's possible for me to go be for a month in another state where I'm shooting a film. Like, there's so much gratitude for your own showing upness to acting and your calling in that moment, just by like, many people can't just be like, oh, I'm taking a month off to go to New Mexico shoot. Like, you have to set up a life that supports that. And so often I think we're like, I have this shitty life because I have to have a flexible schedule for acting. And actually, like, this is what it provides in some ways. I think that's such a good, just to clock that. And like you did, and you took that in. I think it's so important for us to all notice that and notice when we've shown up for ourselves in that way. That's really beautiful. And
I try. It's a work in progress, man, because I don't always do it, but
sure.
I try to more and more, and every job I get, try and really sit in the moment of like when you get the call, you get the email that says you're booked, you know, to let that little kid go, oh, yes, I'm so excited. Cheer yourself on and have a moment of real celebration. You know, we rob ourselves of that, or at least I have in the past, where I haven't let myself really just be a little fat 7-year-old boy going like, yes, I did it, I did it. So I try to let those moments seep in instead of feeling like, oh, this is so great. Okay, so you know, focus on the next thing. It's,
once I book this, once I book this, I'll be able to book that, and then this will happen, and then this will. We're in the future already, and we're missing out on what's right here in front of us. Yeah.
Right.
So important. Yeah. So to kind of put a cap on, I think this conversation could go on for hours. I could talk to you forever, as you know. I'll see you next week. But to put a cap on this for some of the listeners here who are creators or who are sparked by kind of some of the things that you've said today, there's so many things I think we can take away from this conversation. But if you were going to say to someone who is, you know, thinking about creating or sitting on that idea, is there any advice or wish that you would have for them that you would want them to hear from this conversation?
Don't take no for an answer. Do it. Regardless of, get out there and do it. There's no excuse now. You know, we have phones, we have so many things at our fingertips to tell a story. It doesn't matter if it's the best production value. It doesn't matter if it's written or it's improvisational, whatever. Like, this is the great thing about something like TikTok, where creators or people who are not creators that suddenly decide they want to create are able to and empowered to just put stuff out there. I think that's the best thing. You know, we have these platforms now where we can really express ourselves, and it's such a gift. So just do it, because why the fuck not?
I love it.
Why not do it? I mean, and then, you know, you might end up winning an Emmy. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And that's great. That's a wonderful thing, but it's not the end all. But if you're just putting it out there and you're continuing, I look at these people and I'm not as great about it. I see these people that do TikTok, or people that do content, like someone like a Jack Plotnick, or you know, that constantly are putting stuff out. I'm so envious, and I feel like, God, I'm such a slug. Look at this. They've done, like, Jimmy Fowley's another one that I see him doing content, and he's so great at it, and he really puts it out there so well, and I love that. I'm so inspired by that. So I need to listen, you know, to my own what I'm saying here myself, because I need to be better about just really getting stuff out there. I tend to kind of be a dog with a bone, like one project where I really will focus on it and get that done. And sometimes I could do this other stuff that would also bring me joy.
I don't know. I'm going to just compliment you for being a dog with a bone, because the bones that you put out are good bones. So I love that you want to be more inspired, but I would say, like, there's something really beautiful about your creative process. So I'm totally down to see some TikToks from Paul, but I also
I've done a few. They're not good. I don't, that medium is like, I'm really impressed with people that do it well. And you can just,
me crazy. It makes me crazy.
But you can go down that rabbit hole for an hour, and you're just mindlessly scrolling.
And fully entertained, by the way. Like, fully entertained, yes.
And laughing. I have sometimes laid in bed and scrolled, and I'll end up belly laughing. I'll find some hilarious video, you know, I'll repost on social media because I can't stop laughing.
Yeah.
It's so great.
I love it. So listen, everybody, you heard it from Paul. Just do it. Don't take no for an answer. And I know that everyone here is probably very intrigued about finding more out about Paul. So Paul, we're going to link to your Instagram, and Dropping the Soap is on Amazon. Obviously you're on TikTok, where we can see you as a beginning TikToker, it sounds like.
I'm very rarely so it's very, there's nothing impressive there, but sure, yes, follow me. I'll try and do more, I promise.
But I will just say that Paul's Instagram is he's funny all the time, so it's a great one to follow. Can you just tell them what that is in case someone's listening and they're driving?
I think it's Paul_Witten, so PAUL_WITTEN.
Great. And I just want to thank you so much for coming here today. And really, like, I feel like the lesson that I'm hearing again and again, I want everyone to hear, is that strength of vulnerably reaching out, and the resilience around a no, and giving people the dignity of a no, and it's what a powerful path that has led for you, that strength that you've developed has been what kind of is the pebbles underneath this path that you've walked on. And just for all of us to just take from that, the willingness to put yourself out there.
And to know that there's a yes right behind the no.
Yes.
There will be a yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Paul. We're so glad to have you on. You have to have you back someday. All right.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank
what
you.
a pleasure. Pleasure to talk to you.